Welcome to Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Today we're talking about a very special movie, Caché. Caché. Or in the American, or the American way, the English way to say it is hidden. Am I saying that right?
Hidden. Yeah, Caché.
Is there an echo in here? I am your host today, Jordan, and I have a very special co-host today.
Tatiana, a.k.a. my wife, as he calls me.
Yes, but you have to say it like Borat. My wife.
Oh, you usually
you
say
like it when I yell it?
My wife, like Nick Cage or whatever.
It's not Nick.
Oh, I always forget who you're quoting.
Well, they say it in a couple different movies. We just recently did it in It's a Wonderful Life when he points at her and she can't remember him and he goes, "That's my wife!" And then she screams and faints. But I think my favorite My Wife is, it's an old war movie, A Deer Hunter. And the guy is pulling a prank on his friend. They're at a wedding, and he's pretending to kiss the guy's wife. He just got married. And all of a sudden he goes, "That's my wife!"
Who's the actor that does that?
Ooh, I don't know these actors very well.
Okay.
I mean, the main two people are Christopher Walken. My really bad impression of him. And then the other is Robert De Niro. I'm trying to think of a quote from Robert. But anyways.
Good old Robert.
Yeah. So those are the main people, but that particular scene, that's not them quoting it. And actually, I just realized I quoted the wrong movie. Jeez, man, I call myself a movie buff. That movie is actually
tisk.
Kings of New York. Also Christopher Walken's.
Duh, I knew that.
Hey, but it's
No, I'm
also
just
Christopher
kidding.
Walken's, which is pretty funny.
Is it Walkens or Walker? Christopher Walken.
Walken? I
Or
thought
Christopher
it was Walken's.
Walker. Christopher Walken. Yeah, Christopher Walken. Okay, that was an Italian person. That was it's not.
You're getting there. Okay, let's get right into this film. So I'm super excited. This was a recommendation by YMS. Kind of obsessed with his recommendations because he's got pretty good taste in movies. And he usually finds more, I guess, indie films as well as films that are like, he just has a very diverse taste in things like foreign films. And I'm always excited about like, I feel like as soon as I saw a couple of really good foreign films, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like a whole new world has just opened up because there's much more beyond American cinema. And I know a lot of, we still, here at Hollywood stills a lot of great actors from other countries because I think a lot of the money is in Hollywood, but those aren't the best movies. Honestly, a lot of the indie films, because it's usually their baby and their passion projects. And that's why I'm actually super excited to talk about this film, Caché. Is it pronounced Caché?
Caché.
Yeah, great film. Okay, so let's talk about it. What was it like watching the first time? Because I believe this was both our first time after that recommendation. And I told my wife it was French, and you speak French, so.
Yeah. I was a missionary in France and other French-speaking countries nearby for like 18 months. And I was like, yes, please. That was like over 10 years ago, and I'm so rusty, and I love watching French films. And it's like, I feel like I'm discovering I'm understanding the French people even more every time I watch a French film. Because like when I was a missionary, we were only talking about religion. And so it was really cool to see more of, I love watching the French films because I feel like I start to understand their sense of humor a little bit more, and also just like, I don't know, just like their values and other things. And something too that this film reminds me of that I love about the French, and that my brother-in-law Sumner said once after he went to France for the first time with my sister back in 4 or so years ago. He loved that the French seemed to like really, they just spent a lot of time being still and observing and absorbing their surroundings. Like they would walk through a cute, quaint city, or they would walk in nature and they'd really observe it and they'd just appreciate it, and they would take their time. And that's something I love about, I mean, the way they do their meals is it's all about making it long, lots of courses, but everyone talking with each other. It's so opposite of American ways of get us fast food as soon as possible, in and out, you know. But anyways, I liked that the style of this film kind of reflected that, because there were so many shots of stillness, or like just a tiny bit of movement for like a long period of time. But it was so well done. It was so captivating. I remember like, even though there wasn't a lot going on, sometimes we were both like, our eyes were glued to the screen. We wanted to know what was happening. Like, anyways, that was one thing that I liked is that it took place in France, and I enjoyed just how much like you
Well, the whole
liked it
time you
too.
kept pointing out, you're like, oh my goodness, this just reminded me so much of France.
Oh
Right.
yeah, I don't
Or
remember
Sweden. Where did you?
France. Oh, and
Oh, okay,
Switzerland. Yeah.
Switzerland, sorry.
But yeah, yes, that's right. There were some shots that they just show a street, and then maybe you see a park in the shot as well, or you just see the roads and the little cars. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm back there. It was really fun.
And I don't know how they pull a parallel park on those tight spots, because I don't
Yes.
even know how they get around.
You commented on that a lot. You're like, how in the world? And that reminded me of driving on the buses, and it was insane, but those bus drivers were so confident. They just went super quick through these roads, and they had like maybe an inch on each side of the bus before it would have hit something and gotten messed up. So anyways, yeah, it's crazy, those roads and how good people are at driving.
Yeah. And yeah, this first time watching it, like my wife said, it's very like what do you call it? The pacing is so slow, so much so actually we had to watch it over the course of 2 days because
Oh yeah.
we started it pretty late. So
I started to fall asleep.
yeah.
But not because I didn't like it.
No, I was falling asleep too. I think I might even been the one to say, can we put a pause on this? Because I was missing stuff and I kept it's just because they have a lot of these like really wide, slow shots and they let things play out, which is really awesome because then you get to see the actors really shine and give them a chance to like their interactions feel very real because it's not like cut back and then it's just like a face shot, but it's like a wide shot. You see them both interacting so you can see their body language and you get to choose kind of who you're looking at and then their reaction to each person. It just feels like an actual conversation going on.
Well, and sometimes it was just on one person of the conversation. So like you don't even see the other person, but you hear their response and the camera stays on just the person that's not talking. And you know what I mean? Like sometimes it was just on one person of a conversation for quite a while.
Even while the other person was talking, like you're still looking at their reaction to what they're saying.
That was super, I don't know. I feel like that's real life. When you're having then you feel like you're the person having the conversation with them because you only see the one person when you're talking with them.
Yeah, it very immerses you into the film, very much so.
Yes.
Yeah, very shows a lot of restraint because I know it's just like, oh, let's just do shot, reverse shot, reverse shot. And you can tell when something's well done when you watch something like Neil Breen's movies and it's like it'll show shot, reverse shot, but it'll stay there. And instead of interlocking like the sentences, you can tell when something is like played out. For example, like if we're having a conversation right now, like you can tell that we're having a conversation because we're both talking and we're kind of talking over each other. But in a movie like Neil Breen, what he'll do is you can tell he does a take and then he flips the camera and does another take because there'll be a pause and instead of intercutting the voices over each other, like it'll just be like silence and then he'll say his line and all of a sudden it'll flip back the camera to the other way and then it'll be silence.
Yeah.
And then the person will talk. It's just very uncomfortable, very awkward.
Yeah, well, that reminds me of in improv, they train us to actually try and interrupt the end of someone's sentence because that's how people do it in real life. Make it seem a little more
Interesting.
real. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at that. You got a little training 101. I don't know what is it called.
Oh yeah, acting school.
Yeah, she gave you a tip there for all you improvers.
Oh, I see. Yes, free lessons from me. Not
word.
valuable.
That's what I was looking for, a lesson. Talking about two of our favorite things. Do you want to start off?
Okay, sure. I mean, honestly, I liked the overall message, which we didn't get till we watched it at the end. That's okay, right? We can give spoilers in this podcast, right?
spoiler.
Okay. It ended and I was like, what? That's all it ends with? What happens next? What? And then we looked up on YouTube, just the first one that popped up, a little 3-minute analysis of the film. And it was like, oh, and everything came together. So, I mean, one of the things that happens is, I mean, well, the main storyline going on is, it's the background storyline.
Yeah, it helps you to know like French history.
Yeah, so the background story is that the main character, when he was like 6 years old, there was a kid that well, the kid and his parents were staying with all of his family, and they are Algerian. But then the parents went off and got killed in like a war or a street riot or something, and his parents were fine to take on this other kid that was around his same age and raise him, but the main character kid, I think he just got jealous of sharing the attention, or whatever, and he didn't. I mean, it wasn't a good choice. Or maybe at age 6 he was racist against Algerians. I don't know, but he basically sabotaged the situation, to make a long story short. And now years later, he's still denying it. That's the kind of the point of the movie title of Hidden or Caché, is that he's still hiding this information and denying that he mistreated this Algerian boy back decades ago. And the YouTube video explained that's kind of a reflection of and I don't know enough about. I just know that when I was in France, I knew that there was some sort of history with Algerians, and the YouTube video explained that there was some bad oppression against Algerians, and today people, like the society and as a whole, is kind of in denial still. And I know from an American perspective, we were talking about that that is an important message. Like, a lot of times we do forget that there was that, I don't know, sometimes we do need more statues and things to not just forget the terrible things of racism that happened in our country, especially back when there was slavery and back when it was especially really bad. And we shouldn't be in denial of that. We shouldn't be in denial really of any part of history. We should really always just learn from it.
Yes, exactly. We shouldn't be tearing down statues and things.
If it's just because it's an ugly part of history.
Yeah, or erasing parts of history, like burning books and stuff. I mean, that's what Hitler did. Like, it's so dangerous to get rid of history. Like, it's important to be reminded of it. That's why I think this director is so good at reminding us of history, and also the problem with it. Like, clearly there's a huge problem with this guy denying everything that happened in the past. He's such a character that's just like in complete, it's like he knows, but he's just kind of, it's so interesting. Comes from the very beginning of the movie, he like gets reminded of it, and he's like, it's just kind of coming back to me. So it's like, clearly he's tried to kind of forget about it, suppress that memory.
Yes.
And then
he won't even tell his wife. Like, that's what we see. Like, the person he's supposed to be closest with, he will not even tell her. He gets close by the end of the movie, but even then he does not give all the details of what happened. And we still don't know the details of what happened, what exactly it was that he did to the kid to make him bleed in the mouth. That's all. I mean, that's implied, but he still never actually admitted that to his wife.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I mean, you can make lots of, and I think this is where this film does, really well. It leaves it ambiguous, but it's really fun that you can kind of come up with all these theories of possibly, like, because the whole chicken thing, was he the one that killed the chicken and blamed it on?
Yeah, he did tell that story. He convinced the other kid to cut off the head of the chicken, but then he went and told his parents, "Ooh, look what he just did, and he did it to intimidate me." That's what he said, is that he's he's doing it as a way to threaten me of what he'll do to me if I cross him.
Oh, okay.
And that part wasn't true. It's just that the kid somehow convinced the other kid to cut off the head. It wasn't that the other kid was like, "I'm going to cut off the head and intimidate you."
Yeah, and then are we to assume, so the last shot, I'm just really curious, I guess we're getting right into it, but the ending when the son of the father who committed suicide, he's talking to the son, so are we to believe that because the way he was talking to him, is that like just a one-time thing, just throwing all this information at him, do you think? Like, this is what your father is, or who he is, or do you think he was the one getting information from the son, and he was actually the one who did all these videotapes? Like,
oh, like if they worked together. Oh,
well, not necessarily worked together. Like, he befriended him. Maybe and then he would get information from him and try to like blackmail him. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. That could be what happened. I think it's.
But
more
I guess
likely.
That wouldn't really work, because now that I'm thinking more about it, like the son actually likes the father more because he thinks the mom is cheating on him. Remember?
Oh yeah,
There's
he
that
he
whole...
more has a thing against his mom because he thinks his mom is cheating on his dad.
Yeah, so I don't see any... Actually, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I don't know. I just assumed, like, after we, like, watched that other YouTube video, I think I don't know for sure, but it could be that they started communicating with each other, the two sons of the older generation that had
to
the
repeat
issues.
history again, you think?
Not to repeat history, but to actually talk about it so as to not repeat history.
Oh, I love that. I like that way better than what I was saying.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the scene that we see, we don't hear anything of what the two sons are saying to each other. And the one son that if he were to have learned in that conversation of the terrible things his dad did, I don't think he would have been as, like, fine talking to his friends afterwards, like, because he just seemed to be emotionally fine. I wonder if it was more of an introduction and, hey, can we meet up sometime to talk? I bet that's what it was.
Yeah, I love that. Like, that's honestly, I think something we should be doing here is, like, learning from history and then everyone becoming friends. Like, I think that this movie is so applicable to us here in America as well as anywhere. Like, racism, obviously, like my wife mentioned, isn't just a thing just that happened in our history. It's happened everywhere. And so I think it's so important.
And it still happens, and a lot of that is because we're maybe not talking about it enough. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why it could be happening still, but...
Yeah, and I feel like we're talking about it
a little more recently.
But it's like we're almost trying to eliminate or erase it from history. Like, oh, it's such a horrible thing. We should never even mention it. And I feel like we're kind of going on the more extreme side where it's like now all you white people are the ones to blame.
Right.
And you should feel bad and white
for what
guilt.
Your ancestors did.
Yeah.
It's more of, hey, let's be friends now and let's not make the same mistakes going forward. Let's try to improve these dynamics. And of course, we understand there's tension because of how it passes down, things that pass down from generation to generation. But yeah, hopefully we can be our own people, our own generations going forward and not make the same mistakes of history.
Well, and it seems like neither side
ideal world
could kind of let that go. Like the father that killed himself, like he was so bothered and so distraught by what the kid had done to him. And as a child, like, I mean, a lot of kids do pretty dumb things and selfishly. And so I don't know, it's kind of hard to blame him for that. I mean, well, it is like, but to like take it to that extreme to like, but he didn't live the life that he thought he could have had. Like,
yeah, there's probably so much going on with the whole like storyline of what that guy must have gone through to get him to the point where he decided to take his life. And I don't think the movie makers are trying to make us think that it is the fault of the other guy.
I see.
Yeah. But I really like.
But you can just tell that's years of bottled up like anger and resentment and hate.
Well, what's interesting is that the son of that guy, he said at the end, because he grew up in an orphanage instead of your family's warm, loving home, because he grew up in an orphanage, he was taught hate, not love, but he still taught me to love. And we saw that his son really was it seemed like a really good, upstanding guy. And so that's amazing that his father had been able to be resilient and try to be a good person through all that. But yeah, but holy cow, it just sounds like he had a terrible life. So there's so much going on there. But I do really appreciate the conversation with the son, and then the main character, the one that's in denial. The son is just talking to the main character. He just wants to know. He's like telling him, I'm going to make a scene at your workplace if you don't talk to me. He just really wanted to talk to him. And what I got from the conversation is his main point of talking to him is he just wants to know so that he's not just wondering his whole life how this guy feels. I mean, from the son's perspective, the main character was responsible for the death of that son's father. And I mean, anyway, the son just wants to know if this guy feels any remorse at all for the way that he treated the guy that died back when they were kids. And the son sees that this guy doesn't, or at least he sees that he's refusing. I think that's my interpretation, is that he is just working so hard in his body and mind to deny the past. So that's how he's able to get himself to, I don't know, I feel like he's willingly refusing to feel remorse for the past. Anyways, and then that kid sees that. The kid was just curious, like, how... okay, I'm rambling. But anyways, and then that leads to the whole point of, like, yeah, sometimes we just really want to pretend like ugly things in life didn't happen, especially if we were the responsible party. And I mean, yeah, I mean, at the very end, you see this main character. He's just so tired. He's exhausted. He goes to bed early. He's I don't know.
Yeah, and
He
I
feels
feel
sick.
bad for now saying that it was simple anger and resentment that was building up over the years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about him as a character. Like, I mean, he's obviously suffering from so many things like depression or well, and I'm even thinking about when he first met him. Like, he actually didn't know why he was there because he clear. I don't
He
think
didn't do the tapes.
I don't think he did.
Yeah.
I mean, based on just his reactions and his feelings, but it's just like the camera where it was set up and hidden, like. I that's why I wondered, could it have been the son? But it could have been somebody else. Who knows? Like, I think that's kind of another thing. I'm sure people could theorize who left the tapes. But honestly, I mean, it had to have been somebody that had known him, right? Or known the story. Because
Yeah. And for those who don't know, yeah, so there's the whole main story of the plot, and the one you're like, wait, I thought you were going to tell us what happens with this story, but then we find out at the end, like, that's not the main point of the movie. But what we see is this main character and his wife and son. They keep getting sent in the mail or at their doorstep or whatever these films, these videotapes of like their house. It'll just be set in one place. It'll be hours of just seeing people come in and out of their apartment complex, or like, what were some of the other tapes? They followed them around to other places as well.
well, yeah, to essentially guide him to that childhood.
Oh yeah,
Are they considered brothers if they live together, or stepbrother?
they would
adopted
have
brother.
Yeah, they would have been adoptive brothers, but it was only for like 3 months that they actually lived together or something like that. Yeah, it's so interesting.
And there was those, you already mentioned the pictures with all the blood on them.
Oh, and nope. Yeah, whoever this person was that kept taking the hidden footage, they also left pictures, drawings of scenes, these two bad things that happened in the past between those two young kids.
Yeah, and well, maybe I was wondering too, like, no, he definitely got the tapes, because I was like, what if he never even received them? It was just the past kind of haunting him, and he was like starting to be, but his wife saw the tapes as well.
Yeah, they both saw him, yeah.
But in a way, like, you can totally, relate this to just, I feel like this film is so relatable. The more I think about it, like, this is the type of film that's really fun to just think about. Like, that's why it was nice to like take a week to kind of process and think about this film. But it's not actually until this conversation that I'm like, oh my gosh, there's even more to it than I had even thought. Like, that YouTube video is very nice and explained the fact that there was a lot of history, there's history with everybody, because I feel like a lot of us repeat history if we don't learn from it. And so I feel like this is a great film that we can apply to ourselves. And I'm just thinking about the characters and all they're going through, and it's so interesting, like, these tapes that he's getting, like, he's showing up, and that's what I wondered. It's like his past is kind of coming back to him, and he has to face it, but he's trying to ignore it, which I just think is so fascinating and interesting, because just based on both their reactions to one another, it makes me think he didn't send the tapes. But the more I think about it, I'm like, who else could have sent or known about it besides him and his son?
The son, yeah.
And that's why, and because those drawings were directly correlated to the fact from those stories that only those two knew about. So clearly he had to have told somebody. I mean, not the main character, because he didn't want anybody to know. I imagine he kept it to himself, maybe. I mean, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be eating away at him. But that's why it's so interesting when the kid asked him, how do you feel? Like, maybe it doesn't eat away at him. Maybe he just chooses to ignore it. And
yeah, because he knows he will be so distraught if he really grasps, if he really lets himself believe what happened in the past and takes some responsibility for it and everything.
Well, because I thought it was so interesting.
He's a good guy. He's a nice guy. He doesn't want to look at himself as a monster.
Well, it's so interesting too that his mom was in, like, who is that? And it's like, well, you adopted him and had him for a while. Like, how?
Oh yeah, she forgot about it too because it was so.
She just totally
uncomfortable for her.
Yeah, suppressed it from her memory as well, which I found so fascinating.
Well, and for her, her memory was that the little kid that they were gonna adopt ended up being a monster, because she believed the story that her son told her.
Oh yeah.
So she has a whole different memory of what happened. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's all from a lie. This very reminiscent. It reminds me of well, The Hunt because of The Lie, but also there's another one with, oh my goodness, I can see his face. He's in a movie called Filth. James McAvoy in a movie called The Atonement. So it's just a movie where the girl tells a lie and then it just totally destroys his future. And so it's so fascinating and interesting, like how this lie, or I mean, I don't know if it's
he deceived his parents.
Okay, so he was a kid, he did lie, and because of that, the kid, like...
The other kid never had a life in a regular home.
Yeah, I mean,
he would have had.
Yeah, who knows what kind of a life he lived. I think that's also interesting that we never saw what kind of a life he lived, like how hard it was or what happened or...
We know it was an orphanage and that they taught hate to him, so we know it was bad.
Oh, good point. Yeah, that is very true. And so he just had to live, he had a chance to possibly live a family life.
With a family, yeah.
Yeah, with love. It's too bad because it led him to just, clearly he's just holding on to those feelings. I mean, I can't imagine why else you would, I mean, obviously that's a touchy subject with the suicide scene, just like what he was going through. So it's very interesting. I don't know if I should use even the word interesting. It's very sad. This is just a sad film.
Yeah, it is a sad film. And well, something interesting about the way the movie is done and kind of genius is that we keep thinking the title of the movie, Hidden or Caché, is talking about the hidden cameras.
Yeah.
So by the end, you're like, oh, they're going to tell us who made the hidden cameras. And that's like the main character. That was his main quest was, I need to figure out who's making these hidden these hidden videos. And then for the filmmakers to not tell us at all at the end, it's almost, and then of course, luckily we watched that video and that helped us to like realize like, oh, okay, they're basically saying it doesn't matter who made the films. What matters is that he was hiding things. He was hiding things even from his own wife. He was just hiding them from himself even, you know.
I know.
Living such a hidden life, like not owning up to his past. And it's like, that's, I don't understand because like I didn't do something like that impactful on someone else's life that I would feel so guilty and torn up about. So I don't understand the situation. I do think that, and I think what the movie makers are trying to say is what's healthy is that we not suppress them, but that we do talk about it and we, seek help, like help with the emotions and, go to therapy and things, to not let that haunt us,
Yeah. And well, naturally as humans, like we seek love and connection. And so being kind of denied that is like, it's just going against what we need as human beings.
Yeah.
So it's just, I mean, that's why this poor guy was so distraught. And his kid too, like you can tell he's broken up about it and wants so badly just to know how this person feels.
Something I thought of too is the main character must have been starting this whole denial period from an early age, because we see now that he's a pretty good guy. So there must have been some point in his youth that he made the decision, I want to be a good upstanding citizen, but then I have this thing in my past. I don't know. I just, because at any point growing up, he could have told his parents, hey, I lied about what went down. Can we go find him and bring him back? And so he has to like justify to himself his whole life growing up, him not doing that, him not owning up to his parents and telling them what happened.
Oh, yeah. And I just remembered a couple other things that the director actually also made Funny Games, which he did both an American remake and his original one. First time I watched the American version and then I watched it's just Funny Games. It's also based out of history is what I understand, after hearing about some of it. So it's very interesting that he kind of takes parts of history and then puts them into these films. And I mean, it's not like a one-to-one where it's like he shows us history, but he shows us a more like his not own interpretation, but it's just like he'll tell a story and then underneath that story is layers of history, and which I find so interesting and fascinating and extremely fun to watch. So both Funny Games versions are really well done. There's little tiny details different between Funny Games, the American one, and the foreign version. But I love both, and I'm sure eventually we'll talk about both of them.
Love it.
Anyway, so this director is really good. Clearly has a gift. I'm excited to check out more of his films. And yeah, I don't know, do we recommend this film?
I do. I mean... And I don't know what it's rated, but it's got only one violent scene, and
I think one F word.
yeah, maybe. But it's all in French. I personally never even learned the words, so what I hear it, I mean, I see it on the screen with the subtitles, but when I hear it, I don't even flinch because I I never learned those words.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised too because I think it is R, but I don't remember. Maybe it's unrated, but yeah, really well made film.
Yes.
The pacing is very slow, so I mean, buckle in for that. And I thought it was fun too, just like those long takes from the video cameras. I was looking so intently and closely. I'm like, maybe I'm missing something.
Yes, we were. Yeah.
Maybe there'll be something in this shot that I, need to see. Because actually, now that I think about it, talking about restraint, like he does the same thing in Funny Games, where there's just like something will be going on outside the frame, and you'll hear people struggling and fighting, and the camera slowly pans over, and so it's like it's stressing you out because you're like, I need to see what's going on over there.
Oh my goodness.
He shows so much restraint, and
yes.
it's just it's so stressful.
But the payoff, I mean,
well worth
that
it.
kind of thing, you're on the edge of your seat, unless I guess I wouldn't recommend it to someone who truly would be like, oh, they're not giving me enough information that I want. I don't have the patience for this film.
Yeah.
If you know that's you, then just don't give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, an ending like Enemy, where it's like you'll see a giant spider and not understand I just spoiled that movie. But the idea is like, I don't understand what's going on. If that frustrates you and you just like need a resolution.
Well, that's okay, because you can just watch the YouTube video like we did.
Yeah, exactly.
But just like the slow pace, if you know that you'd get antsy with it being really slow paced, and
or do what we did. We broke it up over the course of 2 days.
That's true. Well, neither of us ever got antsy though. We were like, oof.
Very engaged.
It really is a psychological thriller. It was very thrilling,
and it's fun to see like how this hurts their marriage, like your past and stuff. Like it's so important, like to have complete. Is it confidence? No. It's important to be
disclosure or trusting. There was a big theme of whether they trust each other, and she was kept being so hurt that he kept even little things about like information about the cassettes that were being sent in. He would not tell her sometimes, and she's like, "Why didn't you tell me? We're supposed to be on the same team."
Exactly.
I was getting so frustrated with him too. I was right with her.
Oh yeah, my wife was.
Why are you not telling her?
Yeah. Yeah, you were getting very upset that he wouldn't just be honest and tell her exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
Do you think at all that she was cheating on him? I was just curious because that was another dubious thing.
I think we talked about that. I think she was maybe emotionally like.
Yes.
It was with her boss, and her boss is married too, and like the boss and his wife would come over and hang out with her. So I don't know. Maybe it was just that she was emotionally close to both of them.
No, but
I don't
remember,
know.
she was alone with him at the restaurant. He kept
they
touching her.
They went to a restaurant, and she was crying about marriage stuff to him. She was like confiding in this guy about her frustration that she feels like her husband is not communicating with her. So yeah, she shouldn't have done that. That kind of thing, she should really communicate with her husband or with the help. If you need to bring someone in, do it as like a third party neutral therapist or something. But yeah, that wasn't good for her to do that. Talk about that with that guy, I think. But anyways, she's great, that actress. She's those who have seen Le Chocolat with Johnny Depp and this girl. She's great. I think I've seen her in something else as well, but I can't remember. Anyways.
Yeah, she did look familiar. Yeah, great freaking film. Holy cow. I loved it. Do recommend it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like my wife said, there's just one violent scene with the suicide. So if that bugs you or you're sensitive to that, then obviously maybe don't check it out. But
also, I feel bad if you haven't seen it yet and you just listened to this podcast. We spoiled it hardcore, like everything. So it still would be enjoyable, I think. Though it'll still be intense enough that even though you know what happens, you'll still be on the edges of your seat, I think.
Well, and I still want to watch it to see what things I missed or perhaps.
Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah,
let's watch it again.
Yeah, it was so well made, and the acting was, oh my goodness, so good.
So good.
Yeah, just I mean, you totally felt what they were feeling. Like they were so emotionally in tune with their characters. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, just felt for each kid. Like, I mean, even the son, like, you know, being upset with his mom. You're just, and you want it so badly. Like, just talk to me. What's going on?
Yes.
Oh, or wanting to know what's going on in other people's heads. I kind of like that because you're almost projecting your own thoughts. Like, I wonder what this person's thinking. Like, are they gonna finally come out and just be honest? And it's so frustrating when they're not. So, great movie.
So fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this movie as much as we did.
Au revoir.
Peace.